So, question 11 in the Book of Questions. You are given the power to kill people simply by thinking of their deaths and twice repeating the word goodbye. People would die a natural death and no one would suspect you. Are there any situations in which you would use this power? Well, I thought the question was going pretty well at first. It was quite an interesting setup, but then I was rather disappointed by the actual question that came at the end. Are there any situations in which I would use this power? Well, yes, it doesn't test the imagination all that much, does it, to come up with a very, very extreme and extremely unlikely situation in which you would quite happily use that power. If by using that power I could save my own life and the lives of thousands of innocent people who were definitely, I can be sure of it and even prove it if necessary, definitely going to come to some sticky end, die perhaps, because of some incredibly evil person who was quite definitely just being evil and quite clearly in the wrong, well then yes, of course, in reality, life's a bit more grey than that, isn't it? And the exact motives of people doing apparent evil are often much more difficult to judge. And whether those people are actually evil, whether they're doing things deliberately, it's all much more murky in reality. And you don't know that these victims will definitely die. You just think that they probably will die. It's just you're balancing up risks and so forth in real life. But there are surely circumstances. Imagine there's a war on, and some evil, doesn't even have to be evil, someone working for the enemy who might be a perfectly nice guy if you'd met him in the pub only before, some while before the war started, but he's working for the enemy and he's developed some weapon that's going to wipe out you and everyone you know and destroy your country. And so, yeah, you'd use the power, wouldn't you? Of course you would. So I think really there's a bit of a letdown. The question is too easy to answer. Are there any circumstances in which you would use this power? I think perhaps a more interesting question would be, do you think that you would ever use this power? And that's a toughie. Now, obviously I don't know what lies for me in my future, but thinking back of my life so far, if I had had this power, would I ever have used it? I don't know, but I think not. I think the enormity of it would always stop me. Now, I can remember when I was 13, there was a boy at school who went a long way out of his way to make my life as miserable as possible. He was possibly the most knowingly and deliberately evil person I've ever come across. I did absolutely nothing to him. In fact, I had been a friend of his, and I thought a rather good friend. But he decided that he was going to turn on me. And I can remember fantasizing many times about killing him really, really thoroughly. But I was always aware that it was a fantasy. I was always aware that in this fantasy in which I'm stamping on his head over and over and over again, I was just doing something cathartic as a mental exercise in my head. I think if I'd been given this power, I think, but I don't know, that I wouldn't have used it. And as for me now, I'm older and I hope wiser and more mature. When I read this, the first thing that occurs to me is how terrifying a curse this power would be. So someone's given me this power. How do I know I've got this power? Okay, so someone tells me, some angel, demonic, whatever figure, some magical being just informs me that I've now got this power, this magical power, which doesn't exist in reality, nor could it. Would I believe them? Well, no. I mean, in reality, you wouldn't, would you? So how could you find out whether you had the power or not? The only way to test it would be to kill someone. And yeek, what if they actually died on cue? Would you take that? No, come on. I think even then you'd think, wow, that was one hell of a coincidence. This person died. So unless you test it, you don't know if you've actually got it. If you genuinely believe you have this power, it would be so terrifying because it'd be so easy. It's too easy to use this power. That's the thing. You only have to imagine them dying and say the word goodbye. Well, goodbye. I've said the word goodbye loads of times, twice, I'm sure. And I'd have to never say that because it might come after my having imagined someone dying. And of course, imagining someone dying is something that's very, very easy to do. You might, for instance, out of fear that someone, you don't want this person to die, and you see them step out on the road, and you imagine, what if they went in front of that car? What if that car doesn't stop in time? And you imagining them, oh my goodness, they might die now. Oh, they didn't. They didn't. Phew. That was you imagining them dying. That wasn't you wanting them to die. That was, despite yourself, imagining them to die. And if someone tells you not to think of a giraffe, you think of a giraffe. So if you're trying all the time not to imagine anyone dying, you could spend all your mental effort just doing that. It would be a horrendous curse to live with a power like this. And it's too easy to kill someone accidentally. So are there any situations in which I would use this power? Probably not. But all the horrendous doubt and uncertainty around this fill me with quite a bit of fear. Now, there's a follow-up question to this. If you can imagine yourself killing someone indirectly, could you still see doing it if you had to look into the person's eyes and stab the person to death? Have you ever genuinely wanted to kill someone and wished someone dead? Well, I think I've already answered that last bit. I think if circumstances are extreme enough, then yes. You've got to imagine that I must really hate someone an awful lot if I want them dead, in which case staring them in the eye I think would be quite easy, because I'd have to be so certain, I'd have to be so utterly certain in myself that I genuinely wanted them dead because I knew that they should be dead. And so that certainty would make it quite easy, I think, for me to stare them in the eye and kill them. No, in all other respects, this question is one about doubt, uncertainty, and fear.